Alright, we got another video. This one is a little bit different. I know y'all been seeing the tension between America, Iran, and Israel, but I just wanted to check up on it, make sure everything's kosher, because I know a couple of American troops got killed, and as of right now, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. So I think I want to integrate a little world news into my reactions.
We've now entered day 4 of Operation Epic Fury, the U.S. and Israeli war with Iran that continues to spread across the Middle East and claim more casualties. Now, we're going to focus today on some operational updates and end with some controversial statements going around right now about why the United States began this war when we did. Now, yesterday afternoon, U.S. Central Command updated the casualty count, saying that now 6 U.S. service members have been killed in action.
Well, now 6. Look at that. Last time I seen it was 4, now it's 6.
They say U.S. forces recently recovered the remains of 2 previously unaccounted for service members from a facility that was struck during Iran's initial attacks into the region. CNN reported that now 18 service members have been seriously wounded during operations against Iran, so that brings the current tally to 6 Americans killed in action, 18 so far wounded in action. And we do have more details on the 6 Americans that were killed. Our understanding now is that they were all in the same facility in Kuwait. Coming from a CNN report, they say the first U.S. service members to die in the conflict between the United States and Iran were killed by a direct Iranian strike on a makeshift operations center at a civilian port in Kuwait. They say the death toll from that event has since risen to 6 after the remains of 2 additional service members were recovered. Earlier Monday, they said Defense Secretary Hegseth said that the strike that killed the service members hit a, quote, tactical operations center that was fortified, but that there was 1 projectile that made it through air defenses. The source familiar said it was a direct hit just after 9 a.m. local time on the center of the building. They described it as a triple-wide trailer with office space inside. They say the attack came quickly with no warning or sirens to alert the troops to evacuate or to get into a bunker. They say hours after the strike, fire was still smoldering in some parts of the building. The source described that the inside of the makeshift operations center blackened and the walls blown outwards from the blast, with some parts peeling away from the building. So a significant impact there in Kuwait. It sounds like right now that is where the 6 KIA occurred. Now, we know that the wounded have been all across the place. I think there were some in a hotel in Bahrain the other day, and we continue to get new satellite imagery showing that U.S. bases across the region have taken direct impacts from Iranian missiles and drones. So as of now, just like President Trump and General Kane said yesterday, we do expect that U.S. casualties will continue to increase. Now, this doesn't appear to have slowed U.S. offensive operations. We know that strikes have continued across Iran. Some new footage coming out from U.S. Central Command yesterday showed strikes on Iranian drone facilities, on a number of mobile missile launchers and air defense facilities. Added a statement yesterday. We don't have a lot of details on the battle damage assessments at this point inside of Iran. Not a lot there quite yet. President Trump yesterday said, quote, talking about Iran, their air defense, Air Force, Navy, and leadership is gone. They want to talk? I said, too late. Now, this follows a senior Iranian official just the day prior saying that they are not interested in negotiating with the United States. So there has been a lot of talk in recent days that the United States might be carrying out, 2, 3, 4 days worth of kinetic operations and then stopping, trying to provide some sort of diplomatic off-ramp. Now, of course, this could just be posturing from President Trump and from the Iranians, but as of now, it doesn't look like there is any space being made for negotiations between the two parties. Now, Israel, of course, as well, is continuing their offensive operations. We've got a number of new videos coming out showing their strikes across not just Iran, but also in southern Lebanon against Hezbollah targets as well. Israel says overnight, during strikes conducted throughout Iran, the IDF targeted industrial sites used by the Iranian regime to produce weapons, particularly ballistic missiles, that constitute an existential threat to the state of Israel.
Hold on. I just seen something. It says Iran only Chinese ships can pass through the Strait of Hormuz, calling it a gesture of thanks for Beijing's support. All other vessels are banned. In Tehran warns any unauthorized crossing will be met with military action. Iran is only letting Chinese ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
They might have earlier today as well hit a facility housing a vote that was ongoing to select the new leader, the new supreme leader of Iran. Kind of some mixed reports on that. I've seen it all the way from 80 Iranian officials gathered in one building to cast that vote, and it was hit while they were there, to it was an empty building where they were thinking about holding the vote but evacuated it prior. So we'll keep tabs on that. But in terms of what it looks like inside of Iran right now with their new leadership, with the fracturing or lack of fracturing in the IRGC, and kind of what to expect going forward should the people have the ability to rise up. We had a conversation yesterday with Jonathan Sayat of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. John was born and raised in Tehran and now focuses on all things Iran as an analyst. So I'll have that linked in the description below if you want to get a little background, some more details, some nuance, if you will, on what's currently playing out inside of Iran. Now, Israel overnight announced that they have now begun ground operations into southern Lebanon, with Israeli Defense Minister Katz saying, quote, to prevent the possibility of direct fire on Israeli communities, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I have approved the IDF to advance and hold additional controlling areas in Lebanon and protect the border communities from there. And we have seen a significant number of Israeli strikes continue all across Lebanon. We saw a crazy clip earlier of a civilian airliner exiting Beirut as bombs were falling in other portions of that city. Hezbollah announced that they entered this war a little over 24 hours ago and began firing rockets into Israel. It's not clear the effectiveness of those strikes. To be fair, it's not clear the effectiveness of any strikes in Israel at this point. Israel has done, especially compared with the 12-day war, where we were getting a fair amount of footage being shared from Israelis showing missiles raining down and impacting, and drones or missiles being intercepted overhead, and then a lot of footage of the damage after the strikes. That has been locked down. Across the board, we are getting very, very little footage out of Israel showing the effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of the Iranian strikes.
And I think they were showing that too, because I watched a video from Mac Mullah yesterday, and he was saying that the Saudi Arabian government was taking down people's videos of people like showing the any like strikes or like missiles or like anything that was like happening pertaining to the war over there. Like if you was over there, you was posting about the war, like taking screenshots, videos, and photos of anything, they was taking you to jail for a year, and then you was getting fined. And I know that on Reddit they had showed a picture of like Saudi Arabia highway on Reddit, and then it got taken down. So they're censoring like a lot of people like over there from like showing like the destruction of what's happening
At this point. Nonetheless, the war does continue to escalate in a number of different directions. There was a clip I wanted to play for you here from Jasmine Al-Gamal talking about exactly how this escalates, and I think it's accurate because it is kind of what we're seeing play out right now. She is a Middle East policy analyst and a former Pentagon advisor. Here's Jasmine Al-Gamal.
Well, I think the pathway to escalation is wide open, unfortunately. I think what we've seen over the last 3 days is the scene being set for uncontrolled escalation, because we are now getting to a point where Iran is desperately trying to maintain its survival as a regime. And you have a US president who's desperately trying to maintain his credibility ahead of midterm elections and trying to make sense of this decision that he made to go to war. What you saw him today doing was retroactively trying to justify his decision to go to war, once again, smack in the middle of negotiations with the regime. You've seen the justification go everywhere from initially saying, this is for you, the Iranian people, this is your once in a several generation opportunity, go for it. 3 days later, he's now listing 4 objectives. Not one of them mentioned the Iranian people or their freedom. It's about missiles, which supposedly somehow one day can make it all the way to the US. No intelligence backs that up. It's about the nuclear program. There were talks in progress when he decided to strike. The Omani foreign minister said the Iranians were making progress. It's about proxies, and it's about naval ships. Naval ships have never been mentioned before. He just added that on today. So I think what you're seeing is, I heard the Prime Minister today say that Iran was acting recklessly. It is, but we also need to talk about how reckless the US president has been in going into this war and dragging the entire region along with him.
I think that largely fits with what we're seeing play out right now. We no doubt are seeing the Iranian regime kind of grasping at straws, trying to do whatever they can to stay in power. We're seeing them go down paths that have been considered suicidal, right? This is the thing that if they do, it's kind of it's the last chance that they have. Closing down the Straits of Hormuz, which yesterday the IRGC said the strait was officially closed. The United States came out and said, no, it's not. The strait is still open. It is effectively closed at this point. So something like 70 or 80% of ships have decided to not traffic through the strait. Insurance providers are suspending coverage and jacking up rates. And a lot of the carriers are just opting not to take that risk. So, we can debate whether it's formally closed or not. For all intents and purposes, it is closed at this point. And that deals a major blow, not just to countries around the world and the global economy, but Iran as well. It's kind of a poison pill. So the fact that we've seen Iran go that route so quickly does kind of suggest this escalation strategy that Jasmine Al-Gamal is talking about there is what is actually playing out. In fact, adding to that escalation ladder, it looks like overnight Iran struck the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia. According to the Associated Press, they said an attack from 2 drones on the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh caused a limited fire, according to Saudi Arabia's defense ministry, and the embassy urged Americans to avoid the compound. It followed an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait. The embassy announced Tuesday that it was closed until further notice. And what we're seeing is not just drone and missile strikes on a number of countries across the Middle East, but also the United States, our State Department now calling on citizens to evacuate essentially the entire region. So State Department put out a notice last night saying, quote, "Depart now via commercial means due to serious safety risks." And it's not easy to get out of a bunch of these areas. I mean, most of the Middle East, the airspace is just completely shut down because you've got Israeli, U.S., at times Jordanian, U.K., French jets intercepting Iranian munitions. You've got Iranian drones and missiles flying through the air in all directions. Air defense interceptors going up. I mean, that's a risk that I feel like is underappreciated. You can't put aircraft up because the interceptors could shoot them down. Yesterday in Kuwait might be a good example. Still waiting on more details, but of course it does look like Kuwaiti air defense shot down, or at least the initial reports, 3 U.S. F-15. So,
and I ain't gonna lie, it's a little bit too late for them to post this up, because I seen this before, like yesterday, I think. I don't know when they put this up. I feel like they placed this up a little bit too late. Like, they should have done this when they knew that they was about to strike down over in Iran. Because now most people are like stuck overseas.
there's not a lot of easy ways to get out of the Gulf right now. And the countries that the United States is telling our citizens to evacuate immediately: Bahrain, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Israel, West Bank, Gaza, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, UAE, and Yemen. And just real quick, think about that. If we have American citizens in, Iran, Gaza, Syria, and Yemen, up until this point, we were like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry too much about it. But right now, we've drawn the line and said, you got to get out of there. So there are indications increasingly that this war is just going to continue spreading in multiple directions. We've talked about it regularly. The Iranian plan here is mass chaos, inflict as much harm in as broad of a direction as possible, trying to get U.S. allies in the region to come to President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, urging them to stop their attacks on Iran so everything can go back to normal. Now, we got some pretty controversial statements coming out last night and into this morning that I wanted to play for you because they're coming from a couple different directions. They're all from Republican officials or administration officials. We have Secretary Rubio, the Secretary of State, and a number of other positions at this point. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and then Senator Tom Cotton, both Republicans, in talking about the messaging of why this war is playing out, but specifically why it started when it did. Let me start with Secretary Rubio here, then we'll go to Speaker Johnson and Senator Cotton.
Does Congress have to weigh in? Is the president declaring war, and does Congress
No.
have to weigh in? And was there an imminent threat? Did you tell lawmakers that there was an imminent
There
threat?
absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
So
I think that if we was not the aggressor and more of like trying to defend ourselves, wouldn't we have allies who would help us? Because none of our allies are helping us. They're like, oh yeah, you're doing your thing over there, but we're not helping you. Like, we're not gonna help you with your war. We're not gonna stop you. We're not gonna help you. You're just over there. I think that now we are the aggressors now. We're seen as the aggressors now. So I don't know too much how that, because if you look at it broadly, it just looks like the U.S. Israel, with the help of the U.S., just attacked Iran for no reason.
what got a lot of attention there was folks pulled from that it sounded like the United States went after Iran and kind of began the operation, not overall, but decided it was time to go because Israel was going to attack Iran, and Iran in response then was going to attack U.S. bases in the region. Now, to be clear, across all of these, they are not saying this is the justification for war. They're saying this is the reason we started when we did. But it wasn't just Rubio. We then just shortly thereafter heard pretty much the same thing from Speaker Johnson.
They had to evaluate the threats to the U.S., to our troops, to our installations, to our assets in the region and beyond. And they determined, because of the exquisite intelligence that we had, that if Israel fired upon Iran and took action against Iran to take out the missiles, then they would have immediately retaliated against U.S. personnel and assets. We have troops in harm's way, and we have many Americans in the region, and that was of a great concern. If we had waited for all of those eventualities to take place, the consequences of inaction on our part could have been devastating.
So pretty similar language there.
Yeah, but still though, Israel attacks Iran, then Iran mounts up and attacks the U.S., and they know that for a definitive fact that they was gonna drop bombs on us after Israel dropped bombs on them. If Israel attacked, if Iran attacked us after Israel attacked, wouldn't we get help from our allies? Because we'll be seen as defending ourselves instead of the aggressor. I'm just piecing it a little bit together.
From Speaker Johnson. And again, this is getting a lot of attention, so I want to play these clips to give you a little context. I'll have them all linked in the description below. And yes, these were parts of larger speeches, so I'm not trying to take these out of context by any stretch. But I think it's important that we're hearing these almost word for word from each of these senior officials. To that end, Senator Cotton was asked about this today on Fox News. Here's his response.
There's a story out there that the president was pushed into this battle by Benjamin Netanyahu. What's the truth?
Well, first, Brian, no one pushes or drags Donald Trump anywhere. He acts in the vital national security interest of the United States. And second, Secretary Rubio addressed this point yesterday after our Gang of Eight briefing. Israel faced an existential risk, and they were prepared to strike Iran alone. If that happened, Iran was very likely to target our troops. That may address the question of why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Why not 2 months from now? The president, though, did not want to put our troops in harm's way.
Now, one of the reasons I think this is getting as much attention as it is today.
So he decided to put them in harm's way anyway by being the aggressor. Because either way, you're putting the troops in harm's way. Either way you look at it.
Is because the overall case for war, not just why we are at war, but what we're trying to achieve, the messaging there has been messy at best. I would argue in a lot of cases we just completely missed the boat. Now, personally, I think the Iranian regime is awful. I think it's a good thing that Khamenei is gone. I'd like to see the eradication of the IRGC, and I think that would be a net win for the United States, for the Middle East, and certainly for the Iranian people. That said, it's not entirely clear from our administration officials what the goal is here. And just in recent days, we've heard a number of different things floated, which is why I think it's getting a lot of attention when we start hearing that, well, actually, the reason we began strikes when we did is because Israel is getting ready to attack, and then we would have been hit in retaliation. So, whether you agree with conflict or not, I think that the messaging in a democracy, the messaging is very important to get the people on board before you carry out those initial strikes. So if we look back at September 11th, going into Afghanistan, very clear messaging, right? Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, they're in Afghanistan, they attacked the United States, let's go get them. Iraq, again, the messaging there might not have been truthful, but the messaging was succinct. All right, there were weapons of mass destruction that could be used in an attack on the United States. Again, it's weird, but you got to kind of separate out truth from fiction at that point and say the messaging at least was on point. And that's what people would say when they were making the case to go to war. Of course, it proved not accurate. Right now, we've got these long lists that seem to change day to day. So this is Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, what she posted yesterday in terms of the U.S. justification for going to war. That's not going to do it. I'm sorry. You're not trying to convince pundits around D.C. You're trying to convince the average voter in the middle of America that this is a valuable use of our resources and a viable risk. It's something that we should be asking our sons and daughters to risk, and in some cases already give their lives for. Nobody's reading this. Are you kidding me? So I'm going to pull out a couple pieces from this and just kind of articulate why I think we're still not there in terms of making the case for war and what this might mean going forward. She said on Saturday, President Trump released a statement laying out clear objectives to the American people for Operation Epic Fury. Destroy the Iranian regime's missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. Annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. Ensure the regime's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces. Stop them from making and using IEDs or roadside bombs, which have gravely wounded and killed thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. Guarantee that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon. The Iranian Navy is all of a sudden starting to make an appearance in these claims. That was not in the top 10 reasons to go after the Iranian regime. Noticeably missing here is anything about the protesters or a free Iran or a democratic Iran after this or being a part of the global community. That's just not there at all. The Navy has started to appear more and more, again, kind of out of nowhere. The idea that we're going to war to stop them from making and using IEDs. Again, this kind of points back to they do have a lot of blood on their hands, no doubt. They killed a lot of Americans in Iraq. The idea that an objective of this war would be to stop Iran from making IEDs, I feel like this is the first time I've ever heard that. So if we have already begun combat operations and we're hearing kind of new justifications come out, I think that's a problem. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is it's not an area we've spent a lot of time on since the war kicked off, but it gets into the justification for war and the rationale for continuing it. I think we're going to see a lot more debates on this front. I believe the War Powers Act might be coming to a vote today. I'm not really sure if that has a chance of passing or not, or if it's a slam dunk or anything between, but I think we're going to see a lot more pushback across the United States in the coming days, again, because the messaging here has not been coherent. And it's been messy. It provides people a lot of different directions to push, good intentions or bad, right? So if somebody is looking at this saying, I have to do everything possible to make sure this war comes to a stop, they've got a lot of room right now to say, you can't even tell us exactly what the end state is. And for people that want to see a successful operation completed here and the freeing of the Iranian people, I think they also have room to say, wait a minute, do we have a plan for what comes next? Because nobody's even talking about that. And I hope the messaging gets cleaned up soon and it gives us a better idea of exactly what we're in for here. That's all we got for now. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, it's just kind of like two people in the same party saying two different things. Probably time for Iranian leadership to switch to Zoom for meetings. Oh, I watched a video on how, I think I watched, no, it was on Twitter, but I think it was a clip of how he was killed. Been watching since Ukraine was invaded in 2022. Keep up the good work. Throw out a bunch of reasons so people can latch on to the one that appeals to them. When one of the reasons start to gain traction, that'll become the reason. Iran throwing everything in the kitchen sinks. Oh man, I feel like the average intelligence of commentators on these videos the last 4 days has dropped drastically. But yesterday, I took a screenshot of the gas prices. I think it was just when the news dropped of when the Strait of Hormuz was closed. Okay, so yesterday the mid-grade, I don't know if this was mid-grade, I think it was premium, but yesterday prices was $2.99, $3.04, $3.05. Today's price is $3.19. It's getting up there, golly, it's getting up there. But just a little bit, but $3.05, $3.09, even with premium, it wasn't that bad. Just yesterday, it was only $3.04. Now we're getting a lot of $3.09s, $3.05s, $3.15s. $4. $4.09, $4.10. I knew it was going to hit California like crazy. Even regular price is the regular is probably going to go up to $4. That's regular. Regular in California is what we pay in premium over here. Okay, Texas regular is $2.19. Even in Houston, Texas, these are regular though. Let me see premium. Premium 273. I think premium in, let me see. San Antonio 289, $3, 304. Yesterday, I believe it was, I should have taken a screenshot of whether it was regular or premium, but I believe these are regular. I think this is regular. Let me see premium again. I mean regular again. No, then I think those were mid-grade then. Yeah, I think that was mid-grade then. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was mid-grade. It's not that bad at New York though, but it's just crazy how everything's just going right now.
I